Good evening, members. Thank you for attending this extraordinary meeting of the Council. Veronica, could I have prayers, please?
And so let us pray. Holy God, we give thanks for your presence with us this evening as we celebrate together the gifts, talents, and dedication of Dr. Desmond Murphy, as we celebrate his work towards end-of-life care for the people of the Isle of Wight. We thank you, Father, that Dr. Murphy was motivated to use his gifts for the good of others, and that his efforts have been embraced. Lord, we also give thanks to you for the faithful stewardship of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, her representatives, and all who lead with her. Give them your blessing, wisdom, and support, and help us all to be mindful of our gifts and talents, to use them to help those who have less, for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
We have a number of apologies this evening. Councillor Julia Baker-Smith, Councillor Ian Stevens, Councillor John Medland, Councillor John Howe, Councillor Clem Osdow, Councillor Tig Outlaw, and Councillor Jeff Brodie. I'd now like to just read a quick email that I've received, a notification from our Lord Lieutenant. As you're probably aware, he isn't able to make it this evening, but he would like me to read this out. In advance of your meeting this evening, may I present my sincere apologies for not attending this important civic event on my retirement as your Lord Lieutenant after more than 12 years. In saying farewell and thanking you and your predecessors for your support to the Lieutenancy, I also wanted to extend that gratitude to several generations of councillors and, of course, numerous officers and officials in County Hall. I would also have made mention of John Metcalfe, who is ex officio clerk to the Lord Lieutenancy, and in particular to the outstanding work of Gillian Phoenix as the deputy clerk throughout my tenure. It has been a privilege and honour to have served Her Majesty on the island, and whilst I acknowledge that there are still many challenges, we have much to be proud of with a vibrant and proactive voluntary sector, some strong and growing businesses, and a very strong sense of community we should be proud of. I have been supported in my appointment by a marvellous group of Deputy Lieutenants, led by my Vice Lord Lieutenant Sir Guy Ackland, and last but certainly not least, I would have paid tribute to Fiona, who is a star. So that's from Sir Martin, who's unable to make it today. I now would ask if anyone has any declarations of interest, please. None. So we move on to item 2 on the agenda, which is the freedom of the Isle of Wight. To confer the honorary freedom of the Isle of Wight upon Dr. Desmond Murphy in grateful recognition of his establishment and contribution to the Mountbatten Hospice. Councillor Michael Merwell is the proposer, so could you please speak? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Freedom of the Isle of Wight is a great privilege, and Dr. Murphy is a very worthy recipient of the award. Dr. Murphy moved to the Isle of Wight in 1981 and was working as a consultant respiratory physician at St Mary's Hospital when he recognised the need for expert care of end-of-life care. Dr. Murphy made a speech at the official opening of Mountbatten House, as it was then known, in October 1982 by Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent. At that time, the hospice was a 9-bed unit within the National Health Service, and Dr. Murphy was an integral figure in helping to set up and develop the hospice during the 1980s. Since its inception, Mountbatten, as it is now named and known, has become embedded as part of the DNA of our island. Dr. Murphy was pivotal in spearheading the need for the hospice services and was at the forefront of the creation and development to the charity we now have today. Mountbatten is not just a fantastic inpatient unit and the John Treverton Centre in Newport. In any given day, Mountbatten cares for 1,000+ islanders at their homes. 1/3 of these will have conditions other than cancer. It currently costs £8 million every year to deliver the service on the island. Having seen the work at close hand, I, for one, think we are very fortunate to have Mountbatten. I really do. Mountbatten's brilliant, so it's not in here, but since his retirement in 2010, Dr. Murphy has continued to support Mountbatten. To quote Nigel Hartley, who is the Mountbatten Isle of Wight Chief Executive, we cannot underestimate the importance of Dr. Murphy's work for people on the Isle of Wight. He, along with others, worked so hard to set up the hospice during the 1980s. His values and his determination to provide the best service, best possible service and end-of-life care on the island is something we still carry up with us today as we support the community around death, dying and bereavement. It is an honour for me to nominate Dr. Desmond Murphy for the freedom of the Isle of Wight. This is a fitting tribute to Dr. Murphy, and I would like to offer my thanks and congratulations to him. It's tremendous what he's done and what the hospice has done, and everyone connected to Mountbatten, and we should be very proud of it. And I'll shut up.
Could I have a seconder to that proposition, please? Councillor Dave Stewart. I will shortly ask, I know a number of you have already contacted me about wishing to speak, so I did say I would read this out on behalf of Councillor Ian Stevens, and it is, please give my personal thanks to Dr. Des Murphy for all his hard work in bringing the Mountbatten Hospice to fruition. We all know how difficult it is to start a project and reach the end goal. However, to drive through finance is one thing. Satisfying our health bodies and the associated regulatory hurdles is yet another. The hospice is a source of support and also comfort in the most trying of days for those in need, their friends and their loved ones. I pose just one question: where would our island be if we had no hospice? The freedom of our island is a fitting tribute to a very exceptional man. My gratitude and heartfelt congratulations to Des. That's from Councillor Ian Stevens. So I'll go through now the list of people wishing to speak. Councillor Rodney Downer.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Murphy thoroughly deserves being accorded the freedom of the Isle of Wight. Through his work, he has brought comfort to many people near the end of their lives, and the hospice is a testament to that. My brother and myself experienced the kindness of all staff at the hospice when our mother passed away in 2001, and we will always be grateful. In paragraph 11 in the council papers, there is a passage from Dr. Murphy's book which is very poignant and sums up all the excellent work Dr. Murphy has done. Thank you, Dr. Murphy, and congratulations on receiving the freedom of the Isle of Wight. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Adrian Axford.
Thank you, Chairman. Firstly, I would like to pay tribute to Des's work in setting up the hospice. As a family, we have always supported it. My wife was a trustee for 3 years, and my son is a volunteer there, offering IT tuition to volunteers, patients and staff. You may have seen Gary in the current promotional video for this year's Walk the Wight. The hospice, from Des's early beginnings, has evolved as an outstanding provider of end-of-life care on the island, most recently under Nigel Hartley's energetic leadership. It is a sad fact that death is part of the cycle of life, and palliative care is provided to make the process as untroubled and pain-free as possible. But I would also like to mention Des's work in helping set up Ryde Saints Football Club way back in 1993 to provide teenagers the opportunity to break into adult football. Footballing skills were encouraged, of course, but just as important were the attributes of commitment, organisation, sportsmanship and fair play. Included in this are teetotal and non-swearing policies, all of which mean that the club is held in a high regard across the island and beyond. Every week, more than 150 club footballers play in 9 teams from under-7s to under-16s, plus 3 adult sides, and Des himself is still reffing games in his 70s. So this award is to do with community sports as well as the hospice.
Councillor Michael Lilly.
I'm speaking really in my role as chair of the Isle of Wight Voluntary Sector Forum and on behalf of the voluntary sector on this island. It is wonderful that we're celebrating tonight kindness, humanity and empathy, which are not always necessarily celebrated in this room. So it's wonderful that we're actually celebrating that tonight and celebrating the incredible kindness and humanity of the hospice, which you were very much at the concept, and we thank you. But you're also representing the whole voluntary sector movement on the island, and we're celebrating that as well, because without the voluntary sector, there wouldn't have been a hospice. If the voluntary sector stopped tomorrow, we wouldn't have services, and we wouldn't have that daily kindness of volunteers who help give that helping hand to people every minute of the day. And you epitomise that and celebrate that, and I thank you for being a wonderful representative to the voluntary sector on this island. Thank you.
Councillor Steve Hastings.
Thank you, Chair. Hospices are somewhere that every community needs, and I thank you, Dr Murphy, for starting this one at Mountbatten on the island. My first memory of a hospice was when my sister went in to St Wilfrid's in Chichester, and I knew not very much about hospices at the time, and I went along thinking this is going to be some sort of doom-gloom sort of place that I'm heading for. It turned out to be completely the opposite. They weren't there to help her to die, they were there to help her to live out her life. And I thank God every day that she was in there, that was available, and I thank God every day that we have one available on the island. And tonight, I thank you for that. Thank you.
Councillor Dave Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I would like to take this opportunity to speak on behalf of 2 councillors, firstly myself as leader of the council, and secondly for Councillor Glenn Mosdell, who cannot be with us this evening, but who wanted to ensure her message was passed to Dr Murphy this evening, and I will share that with you shortly. For myself, I would like to thank Dr Murphy for all he has done to help the island's Mountbatten Hospice to form and grow. All members will, I'm sure, appreciate just how the hospice has become one of those iconic organisations which all islanders feel they have a personal stake in, whether they have need to use it or not. And I think it's why so many people turn out for events such as the annual Walk the Wight, because they want to show their support and raise money. The hospice I know now was officially opened on the 13th of October 1982 by Her Royal Highness the Duchess of Kent after a fundraising campaign by the Isle of Wight community. You spearheaded the need for the hospice and you've played a pivotal role in it. Dr Murphy has clearly been an important part of that journey of development, just as my colleague Adrian has picked up on Ryde Saints Football Club, where I know from reliable sources you've helped them considerably when they were formed back in 1995. Many may not know that they won the Chartered Standard Club of the Year in 2017, and I understand that you are still involved with them today. I didn't know you were refereeing. I don't intend to play in one of your games, which is great. At a personal level, as with many other islanders, through the service and support which the Mountbatten Hospice offers, I have also experienced the wonderful provision. I've had family members who came to the hospice at a time when they needed hospice support. I cannot understate what that support meant to us at a really difficult time. So I would say thank you to everyone involved with this excellent island community asset. Now, I'm not sure if having the freedom of the Isle of Wight entitles you to unusual discounts. With the council, I don't know if you can drive sheep through Newport High Street. I think you might be able to, I don't know. I'm not even sure if you can travel free on the floating bridge, should you choose to do so. But in receiving this recognition, you do stand in good stead. Anthony Minghella, who I went to school with, and possibly others in the room, Mary Ellis, who received this honour, of similar recognition. And I think on that note, I'll finally share with you the message from Councillor Claire Mosdell. She says, I'm sorry I cannot be with you all this evening at County Hall, but as many of you are aware, I'm attending the Local Government Chronicle Award in London, where adult social care is in the final shortlist of 9 for a health and care award with the likes of Lincolnshire, Glasgow City Health and Social Care Partnership. The competition is tough and the island has done very well to be shortlisted. It is so good that the efforts of Dr Desmond Murphy are being recognised. Having lost my father 10 years ago to stage 4 lung cancer, I've had first-hand experience of the wonderful work that is carried out at the hospice, making what is one of the worst times of your life so much more bearable. The hospice is now there so that not only can passing away happen with dignity, but also that all the members of the family can feel love on the journey. Thank you.
Councillor Julie Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for setting up the hospice, and thank you for elevating care to such a high quality that we have on the island now with the hospice. And also all the fundraising, it's always done so well. The shops look immaculate, the wonderful icon of the sunflower. It's all just joyous and just makes your heart sing. And when, you know, as a family, when you're going through dreadful news of a family member having to go through their final stages, when your heart is being squeezed and you don't know what to do, but the news that they're going into the hospice, it just takes that stress away and that strength. You know they're going to be loved and cared for, and the quality of care is going to be amazing. So that's one worry that you don't have as a family. So thank you so much, and I really hope that, you know, we have our ageing population. I want so much for care to be a career choice for people, that it's actually such a wonderful thing to care for another human being and to love them. So thank you for starting that, and let's hope this revolution continues throughout the island. Thank you.
Are there any other members wishing to speak? Councillor Love.
Thank you. Again, I would like to say a huge thanks to you on behalf of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. I was present at the hospice when the very first HIV patient was brought in, and I saw a wonderful example of compassion and caring at a time of great fear. And so, thank you for everything you have done, not just for people who are HIV positive, but anybody who needs that care and that time. Thank you.
Well, it is now my great honour. Oh, we've got to vote, sorry. Sorry, not yet. Could, we did have a seconder, Councillor Bowshire. So could we please have a show of hands, all those in favour on honouring the freedom to Dr Desmond Murphy. Thank you. Is that everything done? I can vote. Yeah.
Do we need a number, do we? Yeah, let's have a number.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, everybody. Dr Murphy, if you'd like to come down to the front so that I can give you your award. Thank you. Sorry, thank you.
Madam Chairman, councillors, friends, family, close family and friends, some old hospice faces here and current hospice faces here. Thank you all for coming this evening. I do want to thank, of course, Madam Chairman, first of all, for conducting the meeting. Thank the councillors, those who spoke, but also those who didn't speak but voted. And I do want to say a few things because it's clear to me that in a kind of a way, I'm just a front for the hospice, amn't I? A lot of the feeling in the island is for that hospice, and that I recognise, and I'm proud if I am the face for the hospice, because I know the esteem it's held in. But one of the councillors had read my little book, and you may or may not realise that the only reason why I was the consultant who was asked to take on the hospice was that none of the consultants who were already on the island wanted to take it on. Why not? When it's such a popular thing? Because among the medical profession it was not so popular. And essentially, general practitioners and some of the consultants felt that the patients that they were looking after who were approaching the end of their life were adequately cared for by them. But of course, they didn't know what a hospice was all about. And the councillor here was very clear at Chichester what he experienced, and it was very relevant. And I peeked over it Becky Samuelson, who was the first occupational therapist on the hospice. And Becky's well known to many of you as a wonderful artist now, but at that time she was a very go-ahead, pushy occupational therapist. And occupational therapy prior to that was primarily used for diversional treatment, just to take the minds off what was happening, whereas it was completely different what you experienced in Chichester. It's about living every day positively, living every moment, and certainly Becky contributed very significantly to that. Mary Gilbert, I went to see many of the original, those first people that started things on the island. She was their first home care sister going out among the community, and yes, she tells me she wasn't able to come. She's well, but she's disabled from a musculoskeletal point of view, so she's wheelchair bound, and it was going to be very difficult for her. She went out into the community, and initially some of the general practitioners made it clear she was not welcome, and so she went to the ones that patients of those where she was welcome, and within 6 months, every GP was referring patients to the hospice. That's how quickly she had an effect in the community, and the hospice service from Fairlea obviously counted significantly for that achievement. Once or twice I've heard Nigel Hartley mentioned, and he, the current chief executive, has been a fantastic person for lifting morale, making everything possible, can do, and I've got tremendous regard for Nigel, and so if any of you ever meet him, treasure his presence, but watch, he might get you doing something. Unfortunately, he's on holiday at the moment, so couldn't be here, but I see Emma talking there. Emma was very helpful for me when it was the time of the big anniversary that we had a little while ago, and so thank you, Emma, for that. But also you and Duncan Fleming there, and I see Sister, who are all here representing the hospice. You must be pleased to hear the words you're hearing from the councillors this evening. It must make life extremely satisfying, as it was for me. The work that I did in relation to the hospice, which was done on top of a consultant physician post. Graham Thorpe was the person I succeeded on the island, and so that was a full-time post, and it was St Mary's Hospital. It wasn't just St Mary's Hospital. At that time, Ryde Hospital in the 1980s, Ryde Hospital was still open. People from West Wight travelled in the evening to Ryde Hospital for their emergency care, and that's the way the island was. So that was a busy, busy time for me, as you can imagine. I'm pleased that my family and friends are here. Two of my sisters there travelled down from Glasgow yesterday in the storm. Didn't seem to bother them. They didn't notice it, that the weather was terribly bad, but then they're from up north. And three of my offspring are here. Susie at the door taking photographs, and Des Jr. and John there. They've all had to make extraordinary measures to get away from their work to get down here in time, and I believe they're all heading back on a late night ferry, so I thank you all for coming. And I'm pleased that you did come, because you'll be surprised to hear all the nice things being said about me. So I'm glad that they were able to come, and I do want to pay tribute to my wife in this situation, my wife Christabel, because when you think about it, these were in the 1980s that we're talking about, pretty well all through the 1980s. Beginning initially when I was still in Oxford, and one or two people reminded me today of the fact that we were making decisions even before I came to the island. Decisions that had to be made. The hospice had already been approved and funded, and everything was in place for somebody to take up on. 4 of my 5 offspring were born in the 1980s, and at one point 3 of them were in nappies. Now, I was busy with a full-time consultant physician post, busy with the hospice, and therefore, obviously, my wife was left with a lot to do at home without as much support as would have been ideal. However, I'm fortunate, to use a term that another lady used to use, I have a strong and stable wife. And I'm pleased about that. But I do want to take the opportunity of saying, expressing my gratitude to Christabel for all the work that she has had to do. And in the years since, over the years, she's always been very supportive of my job after the hospice in the respiratory department and in St Mary's as a general physician. So, thank you, Christabel, and I love you, Christabel. Oh. And thank you all for coming.
And on that rather lovely note, I call the meeting to a close, but if you could all join us for some drinks and some nibbles in the room after we've left. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.